November 5, 1940. Mid-Atlantic, 600 miles from safety. Convoy HX-84, 37 merchant ships carrying food, fuel, and raw materials vital for British survival, steamed eastward toward Liverpool. One armed merchant cruiser provided escort. HMS Jervis Bay, a converted passenger liner armed with 7 obsolete 6-inch guns. At 1600 hours, lookouts spotted a warship on the horizon. Admiral Scheer, a German pocket battleship. 6 11-inch guns, 8 5.9-inch secondary guns, 12,000 tons displacement, 28 knots speed. She could sink the entire convoy in hours, and there was nothing to stop her. Captain Edward Fegen faced an immediate choice: run and let 37 ships die, or charge a warship that would destroy him in minutes and buy time for the convoy to scatter. Fegen ordered full speed ahead directly at Admiral Scheer. The crew knew it was suicide. Not one man asked to be transferred. They all stayed to give the convoy time to escape. 22 minutes later, Jervis Bay was a burning wreck sinking beneath the Atlantic. 32 of 37 merchant ships escaped. Captain Fegen received the Victoria Cross posthumously. His sacrifice saved the convoy system. The armed merchant cruiser program converted passenger liners into escort vessels. Britain had insufficient regular warships for convoy protection, so the Royal Navy requisitioned ocean liners, installed obsolete naval guns, added minimal armour, and sent them to sea as convoy escorts. HMS Jervis Bay started life as an Aberdeen and Commonwealth liner running between Britain and Australia. 14,000 tons gross tonnage, 549 feet long, 68 feet beam. She could make 15 knots in passenger service. After conversion, the Royal Navy installed 7 6-inch Mark 7 guns, dating from World War I, 2 3-inch anti-aircraft guns, and basic fire control equipment. No armour belt, no torpedo protection. Thin merchant steel hull designed for cargo, not combat. Complement increased to 254 officers and men, most of whom were merchant sailors with minimal naval training. The 6-inch Mark 7 guns had a maximum range of 14,000 yards. They fired a 100-pound shell and required manual loading. Rate of fire was 6 rounds per minute under ideal conditions. On a rolling deck in Atlantic weather, 3 rounds per minute was more realistic. These guns were 50 years behind modern naval artillery. They lacked powered traversing, advanced fire control, or armor-piercing ammunition. They were adequate for deterring armed merchant raiders or surfaced submarines. They were completely inadequate against a capital ship. Admiral Scheer represented the opposite end of naval architecture. Designed as a commerce raider specifically to hunt convoys, she displaced 12,100 tons standard, 14,800 tons full load, 6 11-inch guns in 2 triple turrets, 8 5.9-inch guns in single mounts, 6 4.1-inch guns, 8 torpedo tubes, and armour belt up to 3.1 inches thick. Her 11-inch guns could engage at 26,000 yards, nearly double Jervis Bay's maximum range. She could sink a merchant cruiser before the British ship could even fire back. Speed was 28 knots, 13 knots faster than Jervis Bay. Admiral Scheer could choose her engagement range, maintain that range indefinitely, and destroy any convoy escort from beyond return fire distance. Captain Edward Stephen Fogarty Fegen commanded Jervis Bay. 49 years old, Royal Navy since 1906, he had commanded armed merchant cruisers for most of the war. He understood exactly what his ship could and couldn't do. An AMC was designed to protect convoys from armed merchant raiders, vessels with 6-inch guns or smaller. Against a pocket battleship, an AMC had 0 chance of survival. The engagement was predetermined. Admiral Scheer would sink Jervis Bay in minutes. The only question was how many minutes and what the convoy could accomplish with that time. Convoy HX-84 sailed from Halifax, Nova Scotia on October 28, 1940. 37 merchant ships in 9 columns, carrying grain, steel, timber, oil, and general cargo. Total tonnage was approximately 240,000 tons. If the convoy reached Britain intact, it represented weeks of food and industrial materials. If the convoy was destroyed, Britain's strategic position weakened further. Every ton of shipping lost was irreplaceable. The convoys had to get through. Standard convoy doctrine required merchant ships to scatter if attacked by superior surface forces. Individual ships running in different directions gave some percentage a chance to escape. A concentrated convoy was a target-rich environment for a raider, but scattering took time. Ships needed to reverse course, increase separation, and get beyond visual range. That required 20 to 30 minutes minimum. Someone had to buy that time. At 1600 hours, November 5th, Admiral Scheer appeared on the southern horizon. The German warship had been hunting in the North Atlantic for weeks without finding a convoy. Now she had 37 targets and only one escort. The British merchantman began emergency scatter maneuvers. Jervis Bay turned south and increased speed to maximum. Fegen sent a final radio message to the convoy. "Proceed independently to nearest port." Then he sent a message to his crew that became legendary. "I shall take you in as close as I possibly can." The tactical situation was hopeless. Admiral Scheer could engage at 26,000 yards. Jervis Bay's guns maxed out at 14,000 yards. The German ship could maintain 18,000-yard range and destroy the British cruiser without taking a single hit in return. Fegen's only option was to close the range, get inside German gun range, and force Admiral Scheer to maneuver. Every minute spent maneuvering was a minute not spent sinking convoy ships. Every German shell fired at Jervis Bay was a shell not fired at a merchant vessel. Fegen was trading his ship and his crew for time. At 16-17 hours, Admiral Scheer opened fire at 20,000 yards. 11-inch shells bracketed Jervis Bay immediately. German fire control was excellent. The first salvo was short. The second salvo was over. The third salvo straddled. Fegen ordered maximum speed and began zigzagging to throw off German ranging. Jervis Bay's guns couldn't reach, but the British crew kept closing. 17,000 yards, 16,000, 15,000. German shells were hitting now. An 11-inch shell penetrated Jervis Bay's bow and exploded in the forward hold. Another shell hit the bridge, killing the navigating officer and wounding Fegen in the face. The captain refused medical attention and continued commanding from the open bridge wing. At 14,000 yards, Jervis Bay's forward guns opened fire. The British shells fell short of Admiral Scheer. The range was at maximum, the sea state was rough, and the fire control was primitive. The 6-inch guns kept firing anyway. 3 rounds per minute from 7 guns, 21 shells per minute. Most fell short. Some hit the water near Admiral Scheer and ricocheted. None penetrated the German armour, but the gunfire forced the German captain, Theodor Kranke, to take Jervis Bay seriously. A lucky hit could damage fire control or knock out a gun. Kranke ordered course changes to maintain range. If you're enjoying this analysis of armed merchant cruiser operations, consider subscribing. It helps the channel and ensures you don't miss the next one. Admiral Scheer's return fire was devastating. 11-inch shells tore through Jervis Bay's thin hull like paper. The forward gun turret took a direct hit, killing the entire crew. Another shell exploded in the engine room, killing engineers and starting fires. Fegen's left arm was blown off by shell splinters. He remained on the bridge, giving orders while bleeding heavily. The crew wrapped a tourniquet, and Fegen refused to go below. The ship was burning in 4 places. Speed dropped to 8 knots. Half the guns were out of action. Jervis Bay was dying, but she was still firing. The battle lasted 22 minutes. At 16:39 hours, Jervis Bay's last gun fell silent. The ship was listing heavily to starboard, her superstructure was gone, fires raged throughout, and she was sinking by the bow. Captain Fegen's last order was to abandon ship. He went down with Jervis Bay. Of 254 crew, 187 were killed. 68 survived in the freezing Atlantic water until rescued by a Swedish merchant ship the next morning. Admiral Scheer had fired 335 11-inch shells to sink one armed merchant cruiser. The engagement consumed 40 minutes of daylight and hundreds of tons of ammunition. When Kranke turned his attention to the scattered convoy, twilight was approaching and the merchant ships had 20 miles separation. Admiral Scheer chased individual ships and sank 5 more before darkness ended the hunt. 32 merchant ships escaped. 200,000 tons of cargo reached Britain. The strategic analysis proves Captain Fegen's sacrifice worked. Convoy HX-84 lost 6 ships total, 1 escort and 5 merchantmen. Without Jervis Bay's intervention, Admiral Scheer could have methodically destroyed every ship in the convoy over 6 hours. The loss rate would have been 70 to 80%. Instead, the loss rate was 16%. Jervis Bay bought 22 minutes, and those 22 minutes saved 32 ships and 200,000 tons of cargo. The comparative analysis shows the limitation and value of armed merchant cruisers simultaneously. Jervis Bay's specifications were inferior to Admiral Scheer in every category. Speed, armament, armor, fire control, range, everything favored the German ship. But Jervis Bay had one advantage. Her crew knew their mission and accepted it. Armed merchant cruisers weren't designed to win battles against capital ships. They were designed to die slowly enough to let convoys escape. That mission required courage, not specifications. British armed merchant cruiser doctrine was built on this principle. Place obsolete guns on merchant hulls. Train the crews in basic naval gunnery. Deploy them to escort convoys. If a surface raider appears, the AMC attacks immediately to buy time for the convoy. The AMC will be sunk, but the convoy survives. This doctrine worked because men like Fegen commanded these ships, and crews like Jervis Bay's manned them. Everyone aboard knew the mission. Nobody refused it. The Victoria Cross was awarded to Captain Edward Fegen posthumously. The citation reads that he engaged a vastly superior enemy force, fought until his ship was destroyed, and gave his convoy time to scatter. 187 men died with him. Their sacrifice saved 32 ships and thousands of tons of cargo vital for British survival. The convoy system continued because escorts like Jervis Bay bought time with their lives. The German perspective validates British sacrifice. Admiral Scheer's captain, Theodor Kranke, wrote in his after-action report that the British escort fought with exceptional courage against impossible odds. He noted that Jervis Bay continued fighting long after any reasonable ship would have surrendered or sunk. The German Navy respected the action even as they executed it. The long-term impact extends beyond one convoy. Admiral Scheer's ammunition expenditure against Jervis Bay limited her raiding crew's effectiveness. She sank fewer total ships than planned because she wasted ammunition on one convoy escort. The psychological impact on British merchant sailors was significant. They knew their escorts would fight for them. That knowledge maintained morale through the darkest period of the Battle of the Atlantic. HMS Jervis Bay proved that British naval tradition valued duty over survival. Captain Fegen had the option to run. His ship was faster than most merchantmen. He could have escaped Admiral Scheer and survived. He chose to attack instead because his mission was convoy protection, not self-preservation. That decision cost him his life, his ship, and most of his crew. It also saved 32 ships and validated the entire armed merchant cruiser program. The Royal Navy continued deploying AMCs throughout the war. They knew these ships would be sunk if they encountered capital ships. They deployed them anyway because the convoy system required escorts, and Britain didn't have enough real warships. Armed merchant cruisers filled the gap. They died doing it, but they filled the gap. This is British naval excellence under impossible circumstances. Take an obsolete liner, mount obsolete guns, send her to escort convoys. When a pocket battleship appears, attack immediately and die slowly. Buy the convoy 22 minutes to scatter. Accept 187 casualties to save 32 ships. Receive the Victoria Cross posthumously. That is the standard Jervis Bay set. That is why the convoys got through.